Beruchim habayim, ladies. Welcome to another session of our Tuesday night class on Halacha and Hashkafa. We would like to thank the Schnitzer Mishpacha for hosting this week's class. Thank you very much. You should only have simcha and beracha in the home. Amen. There are a few questions I want to speak about before we get involved in the Halacha. Last week we spoke about Pat Yisrael, Pat Akum, the things that you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, what you can eat, what you can't eat, regarding Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. This week we're speaking of Bishul Yisrael, things that you are not allowed to eat from Goyim, and what you're allowed to eat, what they can cook for you, what they can't cook for you. Now this comes into play in many different scenarios. For example, if you have cleaning help, what is she allowed to make, what is she not allowed to make? Or if you are in a restaurant, what could you eat, what you can't eat? Because there's differences between Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. But before that, I want to speak about the parasha a little bit. There are four questions in this week's parasha that have interesting answers, each of them. And I believe there's one common theme that I thought about it today, and I put it all together. First of all, question number one. We say in this week's parasha that Yaakov Avinu, after Yaakov left Lavan's house and he was going with his wives, with his kids, they were leaving, and he found out that Esav was on the way. Esav, his brother, was coming to kill him. He was coming with 400 generals, and now he had to act fast. He had to know what to do. So he made a plan. I'm going to split up the camps. I'm going to give him presents, and he had a whole situation going on. The first thing that he told his shliach, his messenger, to tell Esav was Im Lavan Garti, and Rashi explains Tariag Mitzvot Shamarti. He says, I lived with Lavan, my father-in-law, who was a sneak, who was a sketch, who was a swindler, who was a cheater. He did everything wrong, and I kept all the mitzvot. So he's basically saying, don't mess with me. If I'm still good after I can live with someone so terrible, that means Hashem is on my side, and you won't win this fight. And then it ends off, Rashi, and Rashi says, "V'lo lemati mima'asav hara'im," and I never learned from his bad things. I never learned from his bad ways. And Rabbi Ruderman, the Rosh Yeshiva, the old Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Yisrael in Baltimore, he asked an amazing question. He says, why does it say it two times? If you did all the mitzvot, of course you didn't learn from his bad ways. Why do you have to say both? I did all the mitzvot, and I didn't learn from his bad ways. Now Rashi, of course, the most famous Rashi, he says, how do we know that he did all the mitzvot? Because Gati, which means that I lived, is the same letters as Tariag, which is the 613 mitzvot. That's question number one. Why does it have to say it two times? You say either you did the mitzvot or you didn't learn from his bad ways. Why do we need both? Question number two. The Gemara says an amazing thing. We all know in the parasha that Yaakov Avinu crossed the lake, the river, with his family, with his children, and he forgot something on the other side. He forgot pachim kitanim. He forgot little glasses, little jugs, little cups. And he went back on the other side. He left his family. He left himself in danger, and we know what happened after that. After that happened, he had to fight with the angel of Esav for the whole night. Now he left them, and he went for what? To get jugs. Now what is he going back to get jugs? What was so important about getting these glasses? Right? It's like waking up 3 a.m. and driving to North Miami Beach or to Miami Beach just to pick up a Snapple bottle. Like, why do you do it for? Why is that so important? He was a very rich man. He had a lot of stuff. What did he care about those jugs? Now, the Gemara in Bava Metzia says the reason why he went back, that rabbis love money. That's what they say. Rabbis love their money. They value what they have, and he went back to go get it. Now, that still doesn't really make a lot of sense. What's the reason why you went back? What do you mean you love money? You love money so you put yourself in danger? You put your family in danger? There has to be something more to it. The third question is, when Esav came with the 400 men, he goes over to Esav, Esav came, he goes over to Yaakov, the person he tried to kill. He came here to kill him. He waited for his father to die so he can kill his brother. And what does he do? He starts to cry. He's crying. You know, the rabbis ask, why is he crying? You came for a reason. You came to do something terrible, to kill your brother. What are you crying for? That's question number 3. Question number 4 is, Yaakov takes Dinah and puts her in a box. Dinah was Yaakov's daughter. And he knew that if Esav sees my daughter, how beautiful she is, how lovely she is, he's going to want to take her. I can't let that happen. Instead, I'm going to take her and put her in a box and hide her so he doesn't see. And what happened from that? The rabbis explain, Chazal explain, that after that, she was actually taken by Shechem. Later on in the parasha, Shechem, which was the king, or the son of the king, took her, and he seduced her, and he was with her, and they had a kid even from that time that they were together. Now, is that so bad? Is it so bad that he didn't want his daughter to be married to such a wicked person that he takes her and hides her? So Rav Shach says, I'll tell you. The reason why it's so bad is because he says it in a way that he banged the nail into the box too hard. He closed the box too fast. He should have thought for a second. He should have said, you know what, maybe I should let her marry him. Maybe she'll change him. But he didn't. He did it too fast, and that's why he was liable. Right? So it's a nice answer, but still, is that the real reason? Is that something so important that we're going to make her get taken now? That Yaakov has to live with the rest of his life that his daughter was taken? So I believe there's one answer to answer everything. To get to this answer, we have to understand the difference between halacha and hashkafa. Halacha is the laws that we keep. We keep laws, right? We're on this world, 613 commandments. We have a lot of dirabanans, things that we have to do, like we're going to learn tonight, Bishul Yisrael. But there's something else also, and that's hashkafa, the way a person's supposed to act, a person's supposed to think. For example, now we're not talking about Ashkenazim. Regarding Ashkenazim, this halacha is going to be different. But according to Sfaradim, not Rabbi Ovadia, but according to the rest of the Sfaradim, without Rabbi Ovadia's explanation, you're not obligated to wear a kippah. A man doesn't have to wear a kippah. Right? Ashkenazim, you have to. Sfaradim, you don't have to. Now, if I would tell you that the chief rabbi just walked into Hollywood, Florida, and he wasn't wearing a kippah, he was walking around everywhere without a kippah, what would you think? You would think the guy's a goy. How can he do such a thing? But if he didn't, let's say if he forgets to make a beracha, he doesn't make a blessing, you're not going to think of him so bad. You'll think of him much worse if he doesn't wear a kippah. Why? One's halacha, one's hashkafa. Right? It's hashkafa. It's a nice thing to do. It's a good thing to do. Really, you should wear a kippah, but for some reason, we look at it much stronger. You know why? Because it is just as strong. Don't forget the mesorah, what we learned from our mothers, from our parents. Don't forget how we used to be, which is more important. The mesorah that we have is more important. Another example, eating excessively. There's no halacha that you're not allowed to eat a lot or you're not allowed to eat excessively all the time. But if you do it, it's not derech eretz. Hashkafically, it's not the right thing to do. You shouldn't always have something in your mouth. It's not a nice thing to do. The Rambam gets very involved in even leaving over something or stopping before you're even full, because that's the real derech eretz and that's healthy. Another example is not Jewish music. So a person has a leniency. He doesn't have to, or she doesn't have to listen to Jewish music when she's exercising, for example, right? The Jews don't have that beat. You can't move. You can't move to a Jewish song. It's terrible. I know they're trying to change it now. It's not a good thing either. Now, these Jewish songs, these non-Jewish songs, there are permissibilities to listen to non-Jewish songs when you're in middle exercising, because it makes it that much better. And you have a permissibility. Now, is it the right thing to do or not the right thing to do? Halachically, for sure, it's fine. Hashkafically, maybe it's not so fine. Now, right? They say, especially by the Syrian weddings, they always it's like a chiyuv. You have an obligation to always walk down to a not Jewish song. Everyone has to walk down to the chuppah. It's always like Titanic, right? You feel like you're on top of the Titanic and dancing right now. It's always that song of the Titanic that everyone. Why do you have to do it? Why can't you pick a Jewish song? Right? And if you go to the rabbi, they're going to say, it's fine. You didn't do nothing wrong. But should that be the song? Should you put that in your heart? This timtum live, this understanding or this taintment of the heart, that it goes in. Everything that we hear goes in. So maybe that shouldn't be the right thing to do.
Jewish songs, like Hebrew song or
Not Jewish songs entirely.
When you say Jewish, is it Hebrew or?
No, I just mean a Jewish singer.
Jewish singer?
A Jewish singer, or not
Israelis,
yeah,
non-religious,
or the non-religious Israeli singers as well would go into that category. Yeah, that would be the same thing. I'm sorry.
the same thing
Right.
So is it or is it not okay to listen to secular music because there are Jews that sing secular music?
It's a good question. We're going to talk about it after the class. Well, like the Maccabees. You want to get the Maccabees here to start singing, I throw my latka in the air. Okay, we'll talk about that after. The same thing, there's a halacha that a woman is actually allowed to read the Torah for men. And the Megillah. They're allowed to go up to the front, to Ya'amod, and read the whole Torah. They don't do it. Why? Because it's not modest. It's not modest. Women, they should, not that we're putting them in a corner, but they understand that they're so much more important in their modesty that they should be left on the side so that they shouldn't be just thrown around for everyone to see. Now, halachically, is it a problem? No. It's no problem. Hashkafically, we don't do it. Why? Because a woman has this certain beautiful modesty that they keep, that they have. We have two more examples. I thought of all these yesterday, so bear with me for a second. Lullabies for children. Now, you're singing songs to your children, whether it's I don't know, London Bridge. For some reason, they all have to do with death. I don't know why all of them end with death, right? It's on top of the cradle and it falls down, or London Bridge is burning, and right. There's always all these different songs that they sing, right, for a different class. We could go through each one of these on a different class to understand them fully. But all these different songs that the kids sing, do they need to hear about it? The Three Bears, right? That just hit me. The Three Bears, right? The G goes in and she eats the porridge. Like, you're teaching your kids that it's okay to steal, to go into people's houses. What do you want them to do now? And then the bears try to kill her and she runs away. And then they're all singing these songs. Is that the right thing to do? Again, halachically, it's no Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't say in the Shulchan Aruch anything. You're not allowed to do X, Y, and Z. But is that the way someone should bring up their kids? And the last thing is the tooth fairy. Now, we all talk about the tooth fairy, right? My mother-in-law calls it the tooth carry. Her name is Carrie. She says tooth carry because she doesn't want to talk about the fairy. Now, we all talk to our kids and we say, you know what? If your tooth falls out, the tooth fairy is going to come and take it. And then one day he realizes that that's not true because he sees the tooth, or you forget to put that dollar. And all the tooth fairies are different. Some of them they have good investments, so they give a lot of money, the $10, and then some of them give a quarter, right? Now, is it right to tell your kids something that's not true? Right? You go to the rabbi, you say the tooth fairy, he'll say, okay, do the tooth fairy. But is it the right thing? You're teaching them about lies. I mean, realize that, not you. People who do that, it's teaching them a lie. Right? You want to give them $1, give them $1. $10, $20, you want to go crazy on them, you want to bring them ice cream. But to tell them, it's like by the goyim. The Santa Claus and the reindeer, they go down the chimney, and the kid believes it until he's sitting on some random guy's lap in the mall. Nobody knows why. But this is all okay, right? It's okay to do all these things. Why? Because it's cute, because it's the kids. But you're teaching them to lie. So is that the right thing to do? Hashkafically, I'm talking about. So we're going to see how hashkafically really makes a very big difference. There is a... Right, does anyone do the tooth fairy here? What do you say?
Just yesterday, I read a tooth fairy.
And do you tell them that do you tell them it's me, or you think it's some...
Right, they figure it out very fast.
Right.
That it's me, After the first time they figure it out, I later wonder,
He's not there yet.
She knows, but she's like, she wants the present, so, she's like...
She'll go for it until you give her the doll.
The tooth fairy. As long as you give me the present,
Right, so
I'm fine with it.
is that, again, I'm not saying any halacha, I'm just saying, is that the right thing to teach a child? Right? It's like, yes.
No, I'll tell you, I personally told my kids there's no tooth fairy, but I'll give them $1 under their pillow still, and then they went and told all their friends that there's no tooth fairy. And I'm hated now.
Right.
Everyone is mad. Also with princesses, when they went to Disney World, they're right, we met real princesses, and I was like, no, they're not real. And then they went and told all their friends that those are not real princesses.
Okay, so I'm with you. You shouldn't teach your kids any of these things because it's not important. I'm not gonna go so crazy, but I remember years ago, the Rabbi Murray Masselton in Emek HaTorah, he told me, I was saying, what's so bad about Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse? So he said, I don't care about the cartoon. He said, but to teach your kids or to show them that a mouse could talk, what are you doing that for? A mouse, they don't talk. Mice don't talk. So when we have to do it, because we live in Florida and everything revolves around Disney World in this whole city, in this whole state, so we call them Miri Mouse, and we call them David Duck. What do we do? This is David Duck. He's not real, but he's Jewish still. Right? But then where does it stop? Right? You have those people And then no one here, of course, but you have those people, they go into Legoland, and then they go to their kid and they say, you know what, you're really 4, but tell them you're 3 because we want to get $10 off. Who doesn't do that? Everyone does that. Tell them you're 3, and then she nods, yes, I'm 3. But then when she gets older, she's like, you know what, if I could lie for $10, I'll lie for $1,000. You know, and then nothing makes a difference anymore because they lost that integrity. Because we showed them that you don't have to have integrity when it comes to $10. So let's lie to Six Flags. Let's lie about Legoland. It's actually a beautiful story that just came to mind about a woman who was speeding down the Garden State Parkway. And she gets stopped by the police, and the police says, you know, you were doing 90 and a 60. And she says, yes, I know, I'm ready for the ticket. And the police was shocked. He's like, you're not going to tell me you have some excuse? You're not going to say, you know, you have to throw up, or you're having a baby, or you're not going to say nothing? So she said, no. And she points to the back. And her child was in the back. And she said, I don't want him to think that you can lie or you can have an excuse to get out of something like this. Because then, when there's something more important, you'll have an excuse also. If mommy can make an excuse for speeding, then she could go and I can make an excuse for whatever it is. Now, I don't know the end of the story.
Robert, since we're a little group, is it better inside or you guys are okay here?
I'm okay.
Yes?
I think it's fine, yeah. I'll talk louder.
Are we getting sprayed?
No.
I'll talk louder, unless you want to switch it off.
Let me ask you. Yes.
Okay, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky was a Rosh Hashiva. He was a big rabbi in Europe before he moved to America. He was a Shiva Torah Vadas. He lived in Toronto. He actually lived in Florida for a little bit, the end of his life. And he says over that there were boys in his school, in his yeshiva, that used to go to the makolet next door. They used to buy something, and the store owner always gave them extra money, a couple pennies, a couple of things. And they went to the rabbi, and they said, am I allowed to keep this money? So he said, the truth is, ta'ut akum, the non-Jew made a mistake. You could keep it, but it's better to give it back. Why? He says, because halachically it's fine, but hashkafically you should always give back anything that's not yours. If it's not yours, you don't keep it. And every boy used to go and give back the money, and the guy did it many times. When the Holocaust came and Europe was under fire, all the Jews were getting taken away. The Goyim were taking the Jews and saying where they were. This person, the makolet owner, the store owner, saved the Jews from the yeshiva. He said, if Jews can act like this and give back the money, because he always used to do it on purpose, I want to see if they're really honest. If they could give back the money, then they're not bad people. They're worth saving. And people got saved because of something like that, because of being honest, even though halachically they didn't have to be honest. There's actually, on this, there's a beautiful Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says about a non-Jew who makes a mistake. If a non-Jew makes a mistake, then you don't have to give it back. The other day, someone over here, her husband, he called me up and said that Amazon sent him 2 espresso machines. He got 2 machines. I said, are they going to find out that you got it? He said, no, they'll never find out I got this machine. They'll never know. Not possible. He said, it's 2 different accounts, whole story. So I tell him, halachically, you don't have to. But why should you have something that really doesn't belong to you? I said, give it back. And that's what he did. And I said, and when you give it back, tell them you're a Jew. Make a Kiddush Hashem out of it also. My wife and I, we have internet at the home. Chatati Aviti, it's tagged, we have internet, and whenever we call up and we want to get a better price, the person says, you know, you have triple play. You could get TV and you could get it. And I say, we don't have a TV. No cable, no TV. And they say, what does that mean you don't have a TV? So I make sure I tell them, well, I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish. We don't have time for that. We don't deal with these things. Right? It's an easy way to make a Kiddush Hashem. Now, what does the Shulchan Aruch says? The Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah brings down, Ta'ut akum, if a goy makes a mistake, you do not have to give it back. And the Be'er HaGolah on the side says something amazing. This is in Siman Shin Memchet, Sameach. It's Sameach because this is going to make people very happy when they read this. It says, Va'ani kotev zot l'dorot. He says, I'm writing this for generations. Rabim gadlu ve'eshiru min ta'ut sheit'u ha'akum v'lo hatzlichu. Many people got very rich from mistakes that a non-Jew made. They got money from a non-Jew, they became very rich. He says, v'lo hatzlichu, they never were matzliach from it. They lost their money. He says, I've seen it with my own eyes. And he says the opposite. He says, and the people who were Mekadesh Hashem, they gave it back, even though halachically they didn't have to, they became very, very rich. So he's telling you, he's giving you haftacha. He's promising you, if you do this, if you keep the hashkafa, not only the halacha, you'll get very rich. Especially in something like this, in money, where we're always trying to pet and pinch and try to get out of all these different things. There's a person, his name is Reuben Shron. He's one of the richest Jews alive. He owns or manages $900 billion worth of real estate. Donald Trump he bought Donald Trump's package many, many years ago. Very wealthy person. Just that we're talking about him now, he also made a Kiddush Hashem. When he first met Donald Trump, he asked him, did you ever watch my TV show, The Apprentice? I'm on TV. He said, no, I don't have a TV. He said, what do you mean you don't have a TV? He says, I'm Jewish, I don't have a TV. He says, since then, he said, you know what, Jews are really different. I'm a celebrity, I'm on TV and everything. That's a side point. Now, he brings down, it was in the recession, he was very poor, he had no money, he couldn't do anything. He said his kids were jumping on the bed. I heard two different versions of the story. One that was in the wall, one they were jumping on a bed, and under the bed was a box, fell out, $40,000, jewels, money, bonds, he had a whole thing over there. And it was a Jewish home, unaffiliated, but when he wrote the contract, when he signed the contract, he said, this is for the house and everything in it. I bought all the furniture. So he said, can I keep this or not? He goes to Rav Moshe Feinstein, and Rav Moshe Feinstein says, give it back. Whether halachically, not halachically, hashkafically, give it back. He gave it back, and the Ber HaGoleh worked on him, and this beracha happened, and he became a multi-billionaire. He just when the Empire State Building was for sale, he put a $2 billion bid on it. Very wealthy person, amazing person. When I was younger, he used to just drive a Camry. I remember he drove a Camry, even though he had all the money in the world, and when he had to go to nice meetings, he had a Lexus. Someone who was driving a Lexus. Those are the people that we look up to. Now, this teaches that hashkafically, things are so important, just like halachically. And we see this by Yaakov Avinu. He worked for Leah for 7 years. His father-in-law said, you want her? Work for Rachel 7 years. He worked for 7 years. He switched him on him. And now he had to work for Rachel. And it says, Im Lavan garti tariag mitzvot shamati, and I didn't learn from his bad ways. The 7 years that he worked, the second 7 years, were just as good as the first. He didn't change anything. Why? Because he's like, you know what? I know I could fulfill whatever my obligation in any way, but I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it in the hashkafa way. I'm going to do it the best way that I could do it, because that's how I work. I'm emet. Yaakov was emet. He was truthful. He was honest. He knew himself, and he knew what he was capable of, and that's what he did. Hashkafically, he worked the same exact way, which we see the exact opposite by Esav. Esav, he was all kibud avayim. He honored his parents, but he said, when my father's going to die, that's when I'm going to go, and I'm going to try to kill Yaakov. And then when he met him, he tried to bite him. It says that he kissed him. Really, he tried to bite him, and that's why there's dots on top of the letters in the Torah saying that he really tried to hurt him. Now, with all this, we can answer these 4 questions. The first question was from Rabbi Ruderman. Rabbi Ruderman asked a question. He says, Im Lavan garti tariag mitzvot shamati. I lived with Lavan, I kept all the mitzvot, I didn't learn from his bad ways. What do you mean he didn't learn from his bad ways? He answers, I didn't learn not from his halacha, I kept all the mitzvot, and not from his hashkafa. I didn't change an ounce. 1 iota of me wasn't changed. I believed in everything I believed. My hashkafa was perfect from beginning to end. And he was saying how important it was. Maybe if it was just halacha, I wouldn't be able to make it, but hashkafa was right there. Hashkafa, I had it. All right, not everything is in a book. Sometimes you need to use your head. Rav Shmuel Birnbaum used to say that there's not 4 Shulchan Aruch, not Arba Shulchan Aruch, not 4 of 4 law Sifarim, but there's 5. And the last one is don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. Do the things that are right, even when it's hard. Right? You buy a car, and they have a manual. It teaches you how to drive. But you have to get behind the wheel. You could read all the halachot, you can read the book, but you have to get behind. You have to see what it's really like. Now, this answers the second question as well. The second question was, why did Yaakov Avinu go back for these small jugs? What were these jugs all about? And I heard this from Rabbi Mansour. Rabbi Mansour explained beautifully. He said that when a person works for money, when he makes a living, Hashem sends him down shefa, he sends him down beracha, he sends him down kesef, money that he could buy things. Now, if a person does something wrong, if he gets it gambling, he does it in something that's not straight, something that he shouldn't be doing, you also get money, but you get it from the sitra achara, you get it from a different shefa, a different place. The Yetzer Hara gives you the money, so it wasn't good money. And he explains it with a mashal. He says there was a person that didn't have any money. He was broke. He couldn't even afford a Netilat Yadayim cup. One day he wakes up in the morning. He sees right near his bed a Netilat Yadayim cup. It says on it, "From God, enjoy." He's the happiest guy in the world. I have a cup from God. He used it every day. He washes his hands 3 times. Not soon after, he made millions. He won the lottery. Now he moves into his new house, mansion, servants, everything he needs. And he wakes up in the morning, the first day, no washing cup. He goes to his slaves, his servants. He says, "Where's my washing cup?" They say, "What washing cup?" "That old thing, I threw it out." "What do you need it? You could buy one made out of gold." He says, "You don't understand. That washing cup was from God. God gave me that. It's worth more than anything." The same thing over here. The pachim ketanim, these jugs that he went back for, it was done halachically and hashkafically, perfect in every way. He got this money. And if God gives you money, and you do it in the right way, then you have it for a reason. There's a reason why you have this money. You have this money to do something with. And he knew that. He said, "I'm going to go across the river to get this money because that's what I need to do. I need these jugs to fulfill whatever I need to do. Because if God gave it to me, I have it for a reason." And that's why it was so important to go back. Yeah. Why didn't he send his servants? Maybe because it was of so much value to him to go back and get it himself. Like that washing cup that he knew God gave this to me, I want to get it myself. This is something that I want to hold dear to me. And now we have the third question. The third question was, and Rabbi Schwab asked this question, he says, why did Esav cry when he met Yaakov? He should have killed him. He should have done something else. What's he crying for? And now we can answer it beautifully. That Esav and Yaakov were in the same predicament all their lives. They lived in the same place. They had the same parents. They were twins. They had everything perfect. They both kept the same halacha. So why were they so different? He cried because he's like, I could have been this person if I just changed my mindset. If lahashkafa, I changed what I did, I could have been in the same boat as him. I could have had a family. I could have had money, everything. They were both rich at the same time. But he didn't. And that's why he cried over the fact that it was so easy for him because he was in the same boat all his life. And now we have the last question. The last question was Dinah. Dinah was put in a box, and Rav Shach explained the reason why Yaakov was punished and Dinah was given to Shechem is because he pushed down the box too hard. He snapped in the nail too quickly. Now we can understand it better. If Hashkafa is so strong, as we saw throughout this whole shiur so far, this whole class, if Hashkafa is so important, then of course it's a terrible thing that happened, but it makes more sense now that he should have waited that minute or that 2 minutes and said, you know what, maybe she could have changed him. I love my brother. I want to take care of my brother. Maybe Dinah could go and Dinah could change Esav. But instead, he didn't think of that. He was doing the halacha. If you go to the rabbi and you say, do I let my daughter marry this bum or not? He'll say no. But maybe you should wait a second and think about it. And that's exactly what happened over here. That he didn't wait. He didn't think for another moment. So we see how important this halacha and hashkafa come together. And we'll just end off with a story before we get involved in halacha. It's just important to know that the Gedolim were so in tune with themselves. Every word they said was emet. They didn't want to get involved in halachically, hashkafically. And they say a story from the Chafetz Chaim. When the Chafetz Chaim applied for a passport, he wanted to go from Poland, the greatest rabbi in the world, wanted to move from Poland to Eretz Yisrael. And he gets a passport, he looks at the passport, and he says, I can't sign this. Why can't you sign the passport? It says occupation. The people around him said, right, rabbi, you're the biggest rabbi in the world. He said, but I never got smicha. I never got smicha. They never said I'm a rabbi. I was never ordained. They said, what do you mean rabbi? You wrote the Mishnah Berurah. You're the biggest guy ever. Everyone comes to you with halachot. He says, I have to be honest in everything that I do, and I won't sign this. Until they sent to Rav Chaim Ozer Grzinski, the Posek Hador, the biggest rabbi also, to send back and write that he is a rabbi, and then he says, now I could sign it. So we see how important it is to always be honest in everything that we do. Hashkafically, halachically, right? We're not ending off this class to say, I know tooth fairies, I know this, I know that, but we'll talk about it after. But just to know that if you're in tune with yourself, so in tune with yourself that everything that you say comes out, it's something emet, something truth, that when you tell your kid you're going to do something, my wife and I are very makbid, we're very particular that when we say you're not going somewhere, you're not going. It doesn't make a difference if you don't do your homework, you're not going. And then he does his homework after the time where he was supposed to do it, so you can't go. Because you have to be honest, because once you don't have that, then it's okay, I'm just going to play around now, I'm going to do whatever I want, because I know that I can use that. And then when he gets older, he's going to do the same thing. Okay, with that, we're going to start Hilchot Bishul Akum. Now, Bishul Akum is a detailed, an extremely detailed part of halacha. Now, the reason why, as we said last week, the reason why you're not allowed to eat something that's cooked by a non-Jew is because of chatnut, because of chasnus. Because if they start cooking you something, making you something that's good, your kids will come to intermarry. You're going to get too close, and that's what we don't want. We want to keep Jews separate than goyim. So if they're going to go and make you food, it's going to be a problem. Now, each of these we're going to talk about in its own time, in its own part. But just as an introduction, there's two times that we are going to say there's no problem. And that is, if it's ne'echal chai, if you can eat the item raw, then there's never a problem of bishul akum. And if it's odeh al shulchan, and only if it's odeh al shulchan medachim. If it's something that's special, something that's good, something that you would get invited for.
Like
Right.
Dunkin' Donuts, they don't have somebody Jewish to come. You don't need to go to this, right?
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about it exactly. Are you Sfaradia?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. What? Well, it's fried, so it's not pot. But we're gonna talk about that in a second. Now, if it's something that you would invite someone over, right? The Queen Elizabeth is gonna have it by her meal. It's a state dinner, right? Not what Donald Trump eats for breakfast. It's when you have something nice, right? If he eats cornflakes, we don't care if he eats cornflakes. But if he has a state dinner, or he has a nice meeting and he's gonna have food, what's he gonna have? This applies also to people that are important, sarim, and it could be even be a big talmidei chachamim also that you would have in your house. What you would serve, and this would depend on the place and the time. So in Eretz Yisrael, for example, they say corn is odeh al shulchan medachim. Corn is something that's special. And if you come to America, nobody eats corn. Corn is not special. The Shevet HaLevi brings down corn has to be cooked by a Jew. Over here, it doesn't have to be cooked by a Jew. And in Mexico, it would have to be cooked by a Jew. So it depends which place you're doing it. Another example, before we get to particulars, would be something like sushi. Right? So you have tuna or you have salmon. So now tuna and salmon, could they be eaten raw or could they not be eaten raw? Right? This is a big dispute. So Amal in the olden days, before sushi was around, nobody ate salmon raw. It was terrible. You'll get sick from it, or nobody ate tuna raw. Nowadays, everyone eats it raw. So I called up a posek. He said I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. You just buy a California roll. No eating raw things. You have to make sure a goy cooks it. A Jew cooks it. Excuse me. And I called up Rabbi Shweki from Deal, a different rabbi, and he says pashtus simply it would be fine, which I believe so is also. Tuna and salmon nowadays does not have to be cooked by a Jew because since people eat it raw. So you see how it changes in the place. And it goes so crazy to say that if you have something over here that's not eaten raw and you bring it to a place that is eaten raw, that over there would be okay to eat it. Or the opposite. Or a place that it's oleh shulchan medachim, that it's on the king's table, or not, that it would change in that way. Now, this is only done by cooking. Anything that has to do with cooking would get into this category. So that means if it's a fire, if it's hot steamed, that can be a different permissibility, which we'll talk about soon. If it's hot smoked, would be a problem. Cold smoked would not be a problem. So if you get the lox that's cold smoked, that wouldn't be a problem. And now that we said that anyway, salmon or lox is not can be eaten raw, it wouldn't be a problem regardless. Now, What about a microwave? You have a microwave, right? Dunkin' Donuts. They take an egg, they put it in a microwave for you. Would that be a problem? So,
Double back in the microwave for ketosis.
No, it's like powdered egg or something. You see them, but it's microwave.
so I'll tell you why there's a way out of it anyways. The way out is they don't make it there. They make it in the company. It's in a little plastic baggie, and then they take it and they heat it up either in this microwave or in this other item that they have. So since it's made in the company commercially, and an egg made in such a way is definitely not on a king's table. It looks terrible. It's like perfectly yellow, and it looks terrible. So that would be okay anyways. But a microwave in general, if you have something, you have chicken, and we know chicken or a potato or something that could be made in a microwave, and it would come out good. It would come out fine. Can it be used? So the poskim say like this: the Shevet HaLevi, Rav Eliyashiv, Cham Ben Sion, Rav Moshe Feinstein, they all say that it's actually a problem. It's a problem even to do it in a microwave, and that's what it seems like the poskim say, the rabbis say, that even if a guy makes it in a microwave, it'll be the same issue. B'shat hatzchak because it's done through molecules that move together very fast. B'shat hatzchak. Exactly. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna see what do you do in a restaurant, and if you have to worry about it, because there could be ways out of it, and most things won't be a problem anyways. Now, which is actually what we're up to now. Look at that. It talks about you have cleaning help. If you have a nanny or you have cleaning help, or you're even in a restaurant where you pay the person. So now there is a Ra'avad and there's a Ramah that say. The Ramah says, before that, I'm sorry. The difference between Ashkenazim and Sfaradim are like this. Ashkenazim, you just have to turn on the fire. Once you turn on the fire, you're good, no problem. That's it. All the hashgachot do, that's what they do, even in commercially done most of the time. They can have an app and they just press it, or they'll go down, they have a pilot light, and they have the fire on at all times, and it's not an issue. So Ashkenazim have it made in this way. Sfaradim have bigger issues, because not only do you have to, you don't have to turn on the fire, but you have to actually be part of the cooking. That means if you have a steak, you got to put on the steak, you got to flip it. If you have pasta, if you have anything you do, you have to be the one putting it in. There is a little way out, and that is you can have a non-Jew go and make everything and put it on the fire, and you could just turn on the fire, and that's being cooked by you, because that's you doing it entirely. Because without that fire being on, it wouldn't be cooked. But for the most part, a Jew by Sfaradim have to do both things. They have to make sure that they're doing something, either the fire with something else, or just doing an act that makes it closer to being cooked.
So even if you have a nanny, for example?
So if you have a nanny that's non-Jewish, right? So you have a nanny that's non-Jewish, and you have this Ramah, so you want to rely on the Ashkenazim that you turn on the fire, because you for sure have to turn on the fire.
No, I'm talking about Sfaradim. She needs to,
So there is a Ra'avad that says since you pay the person, it's talking about someone that you own. The Shach says even someone that you pay, going on the Rashba, that if you pay the person, then there will be no chatnut. I'm not going to get married to this person, and my kids aren't going to marry because I pay you. You're my worker. So Bishat Atzchak, in last resort, you can rely on it, but we don't want to use it as first resort ever. The Ovadia brings it down actually by in one of his Sefarim. The Ovadia says, I want to help out all the Sfaradim that come from America to Israel. They don't know that the people who work in the restaurants are Arabs. They're not Jews. And what do the Ashkenazim do? They just turn on the fire. So you're eating something that's not kosher for you. So he says, if you have the Ramah putting on the fire, and you also have that they get paid, so there's no chatnut, so he says then you can rely on it if you don't know. If you do know, which is what we would do, if we would go to any restaurant, we would make sure to have the person put it on. You go to the mashkiach, and you tell them Shomer Shabbos or Bishul Yisrael for Sfaradim, and tell them to put it on. And they always do it. They all know about it. They always do it here in Lakewood, in Brooklyn. They all know about it. So that would be the best way to get out of it for Sfaradim.
like ask them to turn off the fire and light it again.
That would work also, but they don't usually do that, because that could be a pain. But that would work also. It's better for them to just take the chicken and put it on. which brings us to the end of last week's class, and that was about shawarma. Shawarma is a big issue. I called the posek and I said, how do we do shawarma? You got a shawarma, and in Brooklyn or in Lakewood, not here so much because there's a lot of Israelis working. We have like 9 shawarma places, and they're all Israeli. They all somehow make money. I don't know how. Everyone eats shawarma. But you have the guy who goes, he takes it and he pulls it out, and it's so far away from the fire. And then he cuts it. Underneath the cutting is actually raw. For the most part, it's usually raw. And I called up a posek. He said that was 10 years ago. Now they have a different method of doing it. I called up Pita Express, Noam Sagiv. He told me it's done the same way, and it's usually raw. He says sometimes even the first part's raw, and you have to go and you have to put it in the fire. So now when the goy takes it and pushes it back in, he's cooking it. How can you eat it after for Sferadim? So the only way I can understand how it would be permitted is that if it was far enough that it could still be cooked by the fire, then it would be okay. But if it's further than that, where it won't even be cooked, then there'd be a problem for Sferadim, then we can't eat that.
But the fire initially started by a Jewish person. The fire, the
Right.
grill of
But that's according to Ashkenazim.
Yeah, all the way to Ashkenazi.
For Sferadim, you actually have to go and put it on.
So Sfaradi comes to the restaurant, he's asking the Mashkiach that he's Ashkenazi, what did you do with the shawarma?
Yes, you ask you tell the Ashkenazi to go and push the shawarma back for the next person. But if you don't want to do that because you're embarrassed, and it might be cooking because it's not that far away, and you have the Ashkenazim putting on the fire, and you have also that you pay them, okay. For this crowd, maybe we'll let it. For the people listening, no. Ask your rabbi. I'm sorry?
You can't go to Levi's.
I don't know. We're not talking about names.
Yes, you could go anywhere. You just
No, you could do anything. You just tell the Jew to do it. They always do it. And over here, you'll find in any restaurant, there's usually an Israeli Jewish guy working there anyways.
No,
Who's-
but anyway, whoever works there works for money. He's getting paid.
Right, so it's not the best to do it, but if you can, then you have what to rely on in that category. There is, I remember reading from Rav Shlomo Amar, the old chief rabbi, that it might be okay anyways. We're not going to talk about it now because it's a whole different discussion. Now, זה לא מחמירים. No. Oh, ספרדים מחמירים. הכל מחמירים. Stringent. כולם מחמירים. It's really not difficult. If you want to do it the best way, that's the way to do it. If not, then you have we'll go with the Ashkenazim for now. Now, this goes to the extent that if the person doesn't even know that you have something in the oven, what if he wants to go and cook his sandwich that's kosher, a goy, and you have a sandwich in the back, and he doesn't know and he cooks it? It's still asur. Because there's a cooking involved, and cooking involved would make it that problem. If you forget something in your oven, or it's cold now, or it's half baked, and you leave it in your oven, and then your nanny goes and she has schnitzel from Pita Express. She turns it on, and you have something in the back, and she doesn't know that she's cooking your item. It's still forbidden. That's even according to Ashkenazim. It's still forbidden. Even
What if I'm cooking something, a soup, and I have a nanny, and I took it from the soup with the big spoon
yeah.
and left it outside? Okay, now there is like drops
Okay.
on the spoon. They got cold. She might mistake. She takes the spoon
So-
and she dip it back on the.
Very, very deep question. So we hold in Bishul achad Bishul, which means if it's already cooked, they can't cook it again, and that's going to be fine. But that's a really good question. Now, we're going to talk about Oleh al Shulchan Melachim. I don't know if we're going to get to everything today. Oleh al Shulchan Melachim. What goes on the plate of a king, or of a sar, or of a chashuv person? I remember when we learned this many years ago, it was even a Talmid Chacham. If a big Rosh Hashiva, a big rabbi comes to your house, you want to give him food, what would you serve him? And there were some Sfaradim in the Kolel and Ashkenazim, and the Ashkenazim said, Kugel. And the Sfaradim said, no, that's terrible. Nobody eats kugel. So even within the sects, there could be a machloket. Have something like tortillas or tostillos or whatever they eat in Mexico, and over here it's eaten as a snack, and nobody would serve it in any nice place. So that would be not Oleh al Shulchan Menachim, and that would be fine over here. But in Mexico it would be a problem, because that's what the president of Mexico eats. He eats these different type of items. Now you have something like mushrooms. You see, even in the min, even in the item itself, you could have some that are good and some that are not good. So there are some that are edible raw, and there's some that are oleh al shulchan medachim, and some that are not. I don't know the names of the ones that are not. I know there's a very, very fancy one that they make into powder.
Shiitake.
It's a shiitake?
Probably.
Okay, so maybe that could you eat that raw?
No, you cannot eat that.
So that would be a problem. If a goy cooks that for you, that would be a problem. Right? Even in the item itself. For example, even potatoes. There's Aruch HaShulchan that says it goes by the min. Most poskim don't go with it. Let's say you have potatoes. Potatoes are oleh shulchan melachim. Everybody eats potatoes. You can't eat it raw. You have a nice plate of potatoes, mashed potatoes even. You know, they have it by weddings. Would the same thing apply with French fries? So a lot of poskim, the Shevet HaLevi included, they say French fries is a problem. The poskim that I've asked and that I go with is that French fries would not be a problem. Because that's not something that you would serve in a nice meal. No one eats French fries. Unless you have those nice steak fries, the fancy fries, then that would be a problem. So even in the item itself, you could have two different types. Some that are oleh, some that are important, some that are not important. Which gets involved also in potato chips. Very interestingly enough, you'll have Rav Moshe Feinstein in the Shevet HaLevi in Cham Ben Zion and many poskim saying that potato chips is a problem. Right? So that means a Sferadia maybe wouldn't be able to eat potato chips now. Because it's not done for Bishul Yisrael. Again, what I go with and what the poskim I spoke to said that it's not going to be a problem because nobody serves it. The rabbis that say it is a problem is that it's a potato. You're just cutting it a little bit thinner. It's the same exact thing. And the kosher, the Jewish companies, I should say, not the kosher companies, the Jewish companies would make it Bishul Yisrael. They always try to do that. Rokeach or Pashkis or all these different items. They would try to make it Bishul Yisrael for everyone because they're choshesh, they're concerned for this, and they say it's stringent. Yes?
Can you just clarify, this is the fancy stuff cannot be cooked by a
Yeah,
goy?
if it's fancy, that's something that
You have
you would
to
be
cook it.
invited over, and that would bring about a relationship. But if the person gives you, I don't know, toasted oats, some type of cereal or anything.
Okay,
What does that mean the person gives, like, meaning you buy it from the store, or like?
It would even go with buying in the store. Yeah, that would be the same thing. Yeah.
It's okay to have?
So if you didn't do even like the Ashkenazim, you didn't turn on the fire, then everything that can be eaten raw or is on the table of a king or a wedding or whatever it is, that would be excuse me. If it was eaten raw, then it wouldn't be a problem. But if it was on the table of a king, then it would be a problem.
What about like bread?
Well, bread was last week. That was pat. Regarding bread,
Yeah, I didn't listen.
Ashkenazim don't have that problem at all. Sfaradim have to just turn on the fire or do an item, not like this where you have to do something more. Yes.
Nowadays, you're going to buy fish, let's say, and you go to a going place, and they cut the salmon with the same knife. They cut the octopus and the lobster and whatever.
Okay, so that's not this class at all. That's a kashrut class. But if they do cut it with the same knife, then it would be a problem. Yeah.
They probably do.
No. But I looked into Restaurant Depot and Costco a little while back, and they have different tables and they use different knives. Because if you have a real place that's really cutting salmon and stuff, and they're shipping it out and they're putting it on the aisles and the places, they're not going to use the octopus one for the salmon. They have a separate knife, and it cuts differently. There are different knives for different places. I hope so. So if you hold corn is a problem, let's say in Eretz Yisrael, then the same thing would apply with cornflakes, right? Because cornflakes they pop it. They don't grind it up. If they ground it up, then it would be different. But that would be the same din. Now, things like chocolate would not be a problem, even though it is cooked. It's not baked. It's cooked or it's fried or however they make it. But it's not a problem because it's not something that you eat in a meal. It has to be something that you eat in a meal. That would make it into an issue. Now, what if most people eat it raw, but some people don't eat it raw? So in a case like that, we would say that it goes by the rov. It goes by most people. Or it could go by the country that you live in if most people, like we said, by sushi. Sushi is eaten raw by most people. So then that would be considered something that would be okay. But if it's not, and just you eat it raw, then it's going to be a problem still. There's a place in North Miami, there's a restaurant where someone I know ordered meat that is raw. And I asked them, do you spice it? Do you do anything to it? No, it's straight up raw meat. And she ate it. She said it was very good. She did get sick after. But something like that would still be considered a problem. Why? Because even though she or some people will eat it raw, most people don't eat it raw. They eat meat cooked, and it's going to be a problem. So a goy would not be able to cook your meat. You would either have to put on the fire, according to Ashkenazim, or you'll have to put the meat on itself. And by Sfaradim, it could get a little bit worse, because by fish or by meat, when you cook one side, the other side isn't really cooked yet. So you actually have to also flip it over. So it can make things a little bit more difficult. So if you have, someone told me the other day that they have a barbecue and they turn on the fire and the nanny grills the whole thing, so that could be an issue. You have to turn it over. When do you have to work until? When do you have to make sure it's cooked? It's until ma'achal ben dirusai, which means 1/3. Once it's 1/3 cooked, you're fine. Until that time, that's when you have to do something. If you do something after that time, it's going to be a problem according to Sfaradim. According to Ashkenazim, you could turn on the fire or do anything to the food until the end of the cooking itself. But according to Sfaradim, we are more stringent, and you have 1/3 to do something because it could be eaten. You could be eaten at that point. Ma'achal ben dirusai, 1/3 cooked. Now, if you put it in a place that it's able to be cooked, even if the guy goes and pushes it further in, it's going to be okay. For example, if you put it on the oven door, and it could be cooked somewhat, it'll just take you 10 hours, but it could be cooked, then it's going to be okay, even if he's going to go and push it in. Now, this is an interesting halacha that they bring down. You have potato buds. You have potatoes that are now flakes. They're made into flakes or powder, and now you want to go and you put it with water, and it turns back into it. What's the din? When they made it, when they did it, they took potatoes and they had to cook it first. So right now it should be a problem with Bishul Yisrael. So now if you're doing it, it's already done before. So the rabbis bring down if it's able to be cooked with hot water or cold water. If it needs to be cooked again with hot water to become the same way it was before, or at least somewhat, then it's considered you cooked it. But if not, if it's done with cold water, then that could be an issue. That could be an issue.
So what about coffee?
Good question. Very, very good question. I didn't even want to talk about coffee. Coffee needs to be roasted. It needs to be cooked. So that should be a problem with Bishul Yisrael. If a guy makes it for you, go to Starbucks, that should be a problem. Dunkin' Donuts. The reason why it's not a problem, Al Pi Kabbalah, they say you should be machmir, you should be stringent. The reason why it's not a problem, what we hold, is because since it changes, it's beracha. But if you're gonna go and you're gonna cook it, you're gonna change it. It's batel. It turns into the mashke. It turns into the liquid, and now it's not gonna be a problem anymore because it's a new beracha. It's a new look. It changes its tzura entirely. A big problem is gonna be noodles. Pasta is always oleh al shulchan melachim. Pasta is a very fancy thing that people eat. In restaurants, it's a bigger issue because pasta they never cook right away. It's always cooked at least a certain amount, always. So now if it's cooked a certain amount and then they go and they put it in the whatever they do for the next 3 minutes, that's going to be a problem with Bishul Yisrael. And if you tell them I want it to be put in by a Jew, they say it's already made. They can't do it already. It's already at least 1/3. So with that, you rely on the Rabbi and the Avad and the Ramah that the Ashkenazim have. They at least they put it on. But you have something like tradition soup or different soups that come, couple noodles, one of these noodle cup soups, where it's also pretty much made, and you just put in hot water to finish it off. It could be a problem with Bishul Yisrael. Tradition soup, I know for a fact, is it's made with Bishul Yisrael. It's made by a Jew, but others are not. Another interesting question is regarding French fries. When you buy a bag of French fries and they put it inside of the deep fryer, even steak fries for that matter, it's already cooked somewhat. If you let it stay there and dry out, and after it's frozen, it will, if you bite into it, you'll be able to. A regular potato you won't be able to. So it's actually already cooked by the goyim. So now that they're putting it in after, it's not going to work for Sfaradim. So that can be an issue. By all French fries or things like that, it's not a problem. By steak fries, if they have it from the bag, it could be a problem. After all this, we finished everything important in Bishul Yisrael. Now, after all this, we just have to know that the rabbis bring down this metamtim live. Things that you eat actually go into your body. It changes. Rosh Zalman Auerbach brings down the reason why there's assimilation these days. I kid you not, is because of Bishul Yisrael. That's why. Because people don't eat Bishul Yisrael, and they eat things that they shouldn't eat, and that's why there's assimilation. It goes into the heart, it goes into the body. And we find by Daniel, Hanan, Mishael, Azariah, Esther Hamalka, all these people, you know there's a minhag on Purim to eat seeds, to eat gareinim. Right, in Israel they have the minhag every day. But in here, we have the minhag to eat it on Purim. And the reason why is because Esther never ate the bread. It says she didn't want to eat pat bagamelech. It says by Daniel. Pat bagamelech, he didn't want to eat the bread because it's pat akum, or the other items, so they ate seeds. That's what they eat, because they didn't want to get this into them. But they bring down that a person who's stringent to make sure that everything that goes into their mouth is good, they're going to have a lot of hatzlacha in everything that they do. It says, the Pri Chadash brings down, and we're under for this, we're not nizhar. People aren't careful with this. They go, people's children go in bad ways because of this whatever the spiritual thing is that it goes into us when we eat something that's not good. The truth is, I forgot a very important halakha that it just reminded me, that it goes to the extent that if a goy uses your pots, which happens all the time. When I used to be in Lakewood and I'd sit with the rabbis, people used to come in all the time and say, I have a video camera, is it okay? Can I have a nanny there or a non-Jew? And they would come back 2 weeks later and say, I looked at the video camera, they take our pots, they eat our stuff, they do everything, they turn on the fire. And that's a big issue. Why? Because if someone does Bishul Yisrael, the Bishul Akum, if a guy takes your pot and uses it, you have to kasher it now. You have to kosher it. It's not kosher anymore. It's not like I could just use it now, it was just the food. The pot itself has to be koshered from what was done to it.
Even if it's kosher food.
Even if it's kosher food, if a goy makes it, it's a big problem. Which, I'm going to say it either way, even though I did want to keep this last part out, because this is a big issue when people go on vacations. A lot of times you get the calls, as a rabbi, for sure you get the calls, I'm on vacation, or they don't want to pay for the cruises. It's too expensive. Kosher cruise, $5,000. I'll just get the not kosher. You know, and I'll put it on. I'll put an egg on the thing, and I'll put right, because eggs are a problem also. This could be a big issue, because even if you're putting the egg on the pan, and it's a kosher pan, it's only for hard-boiled eggs, it's still an issue, because that pot is not kosher. Because since that pot was used by a goy, it's considered not kosher. So the people go and take salmon and put it on the pan and think that it's good, it's going to be a problem. So what should you do if you're on vacation? You bring your own pan. You have your own pan, and you put it on the fire. You say, I'm good. You could do whatever you want. Let me just put it on the fire. You could make it for me. You have the chef, and then I'm sorry? That would be the best way.
Is it true that you can put inside the oven with a cover?
If it's double wrapped, it could be okay, yeah. Yeah, that's what we do with microwaves. If you have a not kosher microwave, you double wrap it, and you make sure none of this thing goes in. Now, on what we were saying before, and I'm ending off with this from Rav Ezra Atiyah. We said before that the most important thing is to have integrity, to be honest with what we have, with what we do. Even the things hashkafically that we think they're not so bad, make sure that everything has to be done with honesty. Rav Ezra Atiyah had a boy, not a bachur, he's probably married, who came to him and said, I want you to sign my simicha, I'm a rabbi now, and I want you to sign it. I did my test and I'm good. And he looks at it and it says, signed on this and this date in Porat Yosef, which was his yeshiva, Porat Yosef in the old city. And Rav Ezra Atiyah said, I can't sign this. He said, why not? He said, because I'm not in the old city, I'm at home. He said, who cares? It doesn't make a difference. It's just about the signing. Just see that I passed my test and I'm good. He said, no. And they had to go to the thing. They had to go to the yeshiva to sign it there to make sure that everything is done with total honesty. Right? We would think, come on, that's crazy. It's what are you doing? Who cares? Nobody, you know, when it says you have to, what's the word? You have to go to the banks and you have to notarize something. Right? So whenever you have a friend that's a notary, you do it over there. It's signed in front of me in this place, wherever it was. But no, everything has to be done with total integrity, total honesty. B'ezrat Hashem, we keep this in mind, that hashkafa and halacha are both good. We keep Bishul Yisrael, that everything that goes in us is holy. We will live a real pure and tahor life. Amen.